Firstly, if we haven't met before, my name is Warren. I'm one of the leaders here at Urban Life. And I wanted to say thank you so much to you for praying for Lauren and I last week. So if you weren't here, Craig got up and he actually stood in for me, which is amazing. I want to honor you as well for that, bro. I can't explain. So I was supposed to preach last Sunday, and Lauren went into hospital on Friday night. And I woke up on Saturday morning with a semi-half-done preach, a wife in hospital, a child, and I just went, God, I don't know what to do. And Craig phoned me and just said, hey, bud, rest easy, I'll preach for you. And I just said, thank you so much, because he had half a day to prep, came and preached, did an incredible thing. But what I love is that actually God spoke last week in a way that we weren't expecting. You know, oftentimes we go through difficult situations and we think like, could God somehow still use this for good? I'm not saying he put Laura in hospital, but what I do say is that he even uses that for the good of all of us here, because Craig gets up, preaches a message that was the right message at the right moment for those that were here. And I believe that it's going to enable us to cross over to the other side. And so that's really been amazing. But Lauren is out of hospital. Things are back to normal, which is amazing. And so we just want to honor you and thank you for that. And that is the beauty of community, is we get to stand together in the gap because we all belong here together. And so that being said, I want to invite you, stick around after our meeting. And next week at Family Day, stick around afterwards, play foot golf with us, have a meal with someone. The thing about community is it takes time to build. And so invest some time in a beautiful community that will support you and love you and pray for you when things get difficult as we build together. Foot golf, you'll hear more about next week with an awesome video that we have with drone footage. Fancy, yeah. So we'll show you a bit more about that next week. It's going to be great. So very quickly, I want to find out from you, how would you rate your math skills? 0. I know one number, it's 0. That's the one. So let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, how good are you at math? Let's give like a 0 to 3. Where are you guys at? 0 to 3 out of 10. Couple. Okay. Let's have a 4 to 6. You're like pretty much average. You can do it. Okay, there we go. Let's have the 6 to 9s. 6 to 9 out of 10. All right, these people are probably like in accounting or something. Because I was not in that at all, but it's a separate thing. Okay, who thinks they're like a 10 out of 10 here? We're saying like boss at maths. Okay, wow. All right, we're going to put up a complex equation. If you guys can come and join us on stage, and you can... No, you got to put your money where your mouth is. So now no, I'm just kidding. Now you're like, I'm a 9. I'm a 9. I lied. I rate myself too high. So I would say I'm pretty good at maths, or at least I was, because I studied a maths-based degree. And I was doing all of that stuff, practicing it regularly, keep on going. But it's been about, I'd say 8 to 10 years that I haven't practiced in that kind of sense. So now if you throw like X, Y, Z in front of me, I'm like, not so much. But one of the things I do really try to do is I try and keep my brain sharp with maths every time I pay a bill at a restaurant. I try and be the guy, I'm like, let me work out the tip, I got you. And I'll pull it around, and I try my best not to use my calculator that's on my phone. I'm like, that's weakness. Don't show weakness, Warren. You can do this. And I'll just work it out and all that. And sometimes I really need people at the table to be more quiet because I'm trying to focus. Okay?
You give 10% or 12.75%?
10 and 12. See, 12.75% is more difficult. So just go 20. If you're going 10, between 10, just go for it. So my wife is, looks-wise, I would say an 11 out of 10, right? But math-wise, I'd say maybe a 1 out of 10. Minus two. I once got a phone call from her. It was the best. She's like, I'm at the shops. I need to buy some supplies for Life Kids, because Lauren helps with our Life Kids. And she goes, okay, we've got 50 kids. Each child needs 3 crayons. There are 15 crayons in a pack. How many packs do I buy? And I'm like, couldn't you just work this out? She's like, no. I'm like, I need a piece of paper. Like, so I'm sitting down because I'm trying to keep score. I'm trying to keep track of what's being said. And then I'm like, oops, jeepers. Let me just throw that away. I'm trying to add this, hold on to that, add this, and then at the end, try and pull it all together. Anybody else do that with math? Right? It can be really difficult. And so, yeah, Craig's just like, this much. You get $200, done. So here's the thing is we might all be in different places when it comes to our math skills and trying to keep track and trying to keep score when it comes to that. But I would say and argue that most of us are pretty good at keeping track or keeping score when people hurt us. You know, when people have done things to offend us, or done things that have caused us pain, or done things to turn their backs on us, or lie, or steal, or we've heard the rumor, all of those things, we're really good at keeping track of that. What we do is we can remember almost every detail. We can remember the day, the time, what the weather was doing, what they were wearing, what their facial expression did. We can remember what they said, how it made us feel. We can remember how unjust that moment was. Even as we play it back over time, we can hold on to every moment and say, I should have said this, and then I could have said that, and then this would have been better. And we hold on to those things so well. We look at the people around us, and we can even say things like, you criticize the way I look. I heard that comment about the shoes, and I'm going to remember it. And then we say, and then you decided you're going to forget my birthday. Another +1 for you. Okay. And then I sent you a message. You didn't reply for a week, but I saw the blue tick. So another one for you over there. Right? And then we look at people maybe that we work with, and we say, you took credit for my work project. I'm going to take note of that. And then you got the promotion that I deserved because of it. And then you started spreading rumors about how I come to work late and I'm lazy in my work ethic. I'm going to remember that too. And we hold on to these things. And friends, if we're honest, they're holding us back and keeping us down instead of free, light, and full of joy stepping into the promises of God. And I'm here today to say that I haven't arrived in this. I'm a person that needs to continue to lose count when people offend me. But man, what I have decided is that my future is worth more than my past. And I want to step into what God has for me with joy, with courage, with momentum, rather than carrying all this excess baggage with me. Where are you at? Are you good at keeping score? Or is it time for us to grow up and lose count? We're growing up.
Let's grow up.
You know, Jesus actually says that it's impossible that no offenses come. It says it in John 17, verse 1. He gives us this promise. In life, you are going to get hurt. You are going to be betrayed. You're going to have rumors spread about you. People are going to disappoint you. People are going to treat you unjustly in ways that you don't deserve. It will happen. Happy Sunday, everyone. Here's the thing. When we come to terms with reality, we'll stop blaming God for what others are doing. Right? Because oftentimes we can go, I came to Jesus, and so my life is supposed to be mushy-cushy and all fine, and everybody loves each other, and it's all going to work out. Friends, we're still going to go through pain. But we have a decision, because offense is an event, offended is a decision. And we can choose to either get bitter, or we can choose to get better and walk forward by the grace empowerment of God so that we can step into the future He has for us. And we're not good at that. We're really good at holding on. We're really good at playing it over and over again. And friends, it is robbing us of the future God has for us. It's time for us to leave it here, and it's time for us to walk forward into the future with Him. It says in Ephesians verse 4 to 31 to 32, this is where we're picking up our base text in this series called Let's Grow Up. We're growing up. We believe that we all have some growing up to do in different areas in our lives. And if we're honest, if Jesus is saying that it's impossible that no offenses come, that means that every single water-drinking, breathing human being will have to forgive at some point. We are all going to get hurt, and so we need to be prepared for those moments. How are we going to handle them? Are we going to let them trip us up and fall down and our whole world falls apart? Or are we going to become people that are unoffendable? People that walk forward no matter what opposition comes and say, my God is greater than this, and I'm going to trust Him and step into the future. Friends, easier said than done, but we're going to look at doing some work this morning by the power of the Holy Spirit and His grace to say, God, change my future as I do this. And so Ephesians 4, verse, let me just quickly grab it over here, verse 31 to 32, it says this: get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words, and slander, as well as all types of evil behavior. Now, when I'm holding a grudge against somebody, the first sign for me is what I'm saying about them. I'm very good at telling anybody that would like to hear what a bad person they are, how I'm the victim, and how I've been treated unjustly. I'm even happy to throw on some spice in that story too, so that they walk away going, I can't believe they said that. Can you believe they did that? And friends, here's the thing about offense is I can be offended because people hurt me, but I can also get offended because people hurt those that I love. We need to be aware of these things, right? And so we look at this and we realize that when we're speaking slanderous things, we're holding on to bitterness. Earlier on in Ephesians 4, Paul actually warns us, which I think is incredible. He says, get angry, that's fine, but don't let it lead you to sin. Don't let the sun go down on your anger. What he's trying to say is our emotions are real. Our pain is real. We might flare up and go, how dare you treat me that way? But what he's saying is let it be a quick passing moment. Choose to forgive and move on, because if we don't, a root of bitterness is going to take hold, and it's going to be weighing us down and holding us back from the joy and the future and the promise God has for us. And so as we look through it, he continues. What I love is Jesus doesn't say, stop doing this. Okay, now white knuckle it out and just keep doing that. What he teaches is that we replace with a new. And so he's saying, hey, you're a new creation. When you put your faith in Jesus, there's a new way to live. There's a new grace. There's a new power. There's a new way forward that we can step into. So he says, put away the old, but instead be kind to each other, tender-hearted, forgiving one another. Say forgiving one another. Can you say it a little bit happier? Forgiving, it's going to be okay. Right? Forgiving one another. Just as God through Christ has forgiven you. There's a great preacher named Robert Madu, and he says it well. He says, your level of offendability is an indicator of your level of spiritual maturity. What he's trying to say is the more offended we get so easily, it shows us actually that we've got some growing up to do. This is a difficult thing to grapple with, because I look at it and go, but I want to get offended. I want to get frustrated. I want to hold on to these different things because the pain is real. But actually what we're learning is that it's not mature for us to live that way. I've had interactions with friends where I've blue ticked them or not responded, and it's because life gets in the way, and I meant no harm by it, but next time I greet them, they give me that look. Hello. You're like, oh man, I'm so sorry I didn't get back to your message. I know you saw it. You're like, come on, let's grow up. Let's get past this. It's not that I'm trying to be offending to you. It's just that situations got in the way. But man, we make the world about us and how everybody's out to get us and how everybody wants to hurt us. And God is just on our side and we're the victim every time. Friends, we hurt other people too. All of us need forgiveness and all of us need to forgive. We are all going to let one another down. And friends, it's no different in the church. We're going to disappoint you. The people around you that you love, that follow Jesus, that sing his praises on Sunday, they can hurt you on Monday. But we need to be a people that when we get hurt, we choose to not allow it to hold us back from the future God has for us, but choose to say, you know what, God, I was hurt, but justice is in your hands, and I'm going to choose to let go and live free. I'm going to choose to release them because I want to grow up into all that you have for me, and I want to choose joy over bitterness. A few months ago, a couple came to see Lauren and I for coffee, and they gave us permission to share this story. And as they walked in, we love them. They're a great couple. They're quite vibrant, also young, recently married, really just an incredible couple. And so they walked in, and we were expecting like a light kind of like, hey, how's it going? Good, good. And as they walked around the corner, I could immediately see that something was wrong. You know when you look at someone's face and you're just like, something's not okay. And so as she was walking, she, even in her body posture and in her facial expressions and in everything, I could see she was carrying a lot of heaviness. There was something not right. And it was awkward at first to try and talk to them because you both know there's an elephant in the room and you're trying to talk around it. Have you guys been there? You're like, let's just not go there because it's a bit sore for now. And so we sat down, we let the coffee be an anesthetic to the motion, right? It was great. And we started to chat a little bit, and then we just said, hey, so what's going on? And she started to open up about the problems that they're having in their marriage. She told a story of how 2 years before this, her husband had got drunk. And they were together, or he was boyfriend at the time. And so they were together, and he was drunk, and he was about to get into a car and drive, and she begged him not to get behind the wheel. She begged him. She said, don't do this. And he chose to ignore his wife's warning and ignore her trying to protect him. And he got in the car drunk, and he drove. He caused an accident that night. He was arrested and he was put in jail. And she got a call a little bit later, obviously having so much stress and anxiety, worried about her boyfriend and if he would be okay. And the call she got was her worst fear. Your boyfriend's in prison. You can come and see him. And so she came through, and to make matters worse, with all this going on, that was the first time she ever met her future in-laws. And she was so embarrassed in that moment, saying, well, this is not the way I wanted to meet these people. And now my boyfriend is in jail, and I told him not to do this, and she's feeling this great pain. And so since that day, things have actually changed. You know, he's stopped drinking and driving. He's turned around. You know, the word repentance that's used in the Bible is not just saying, I'm sorry. It means I want to change, and I'm going to walk that way. And so he was going this way, and he turned his life around and said, no, I'm not doing that anymore. And so he showed her, I've repented. He begged her for forgiveness over and over again, but there's a problem in this whole story, is that the court case continued. And now 2 years later, he's still sitting with a potential criminal record because of what he'd done. And for her, that's unforgivable. She was worried about her future. Just saying, well, what is this going to mean for your career? If you change jobs, now you've got this looming criminal record over you. What's this going to mean if we ever want to travel and go to another country? Are we ever going to get a visa? How is this ever going to do anything for us apart from just keep us back from the future that I wanted? And so she held on to bitterness and held on to bitterness. And friends, he was going through not just the court case, but a wife that wasn't willing to let go too. And they were totally stuck. Totally stuck. There was bitterness in the room. There was tension, heaviness in the room. And so we started to ask some questions. And we said, okay, well, as far as we see it, you've got 3 options here. Sometimes we feel stuck like there's no choice. But friends, I want to say there's always another option. There's always a way around. There's always a way through, because with God, he will always enable us to walk forward into the future. And so we said, okay, well, here are your options. The first one is you could carry on the way you are. You could hold on to this bitterness. But you and I both know that's not what you want. And as tears welled up in her eyes, she said, I can't carry on like this. So, well, you've got a second option. You could leave him because you're so worried about your future, and you could start over with someone else. But then you're not going to just have the baggage and pain from this. It's also going to be the baggage and pain from a divorce and trying to start over new, and that person's going to disappoint you too. We're all people. We all make mistakes. And so she said, that's not an option for me. So, well, then you've got a third option. You could choose to forgive. She said, but he doesn't deserve it. I said, I know, he doesn't. But do you? See, the reality is all of us need forgiveness. Not just from each other, but if we're honest, we need forgiveness from God. Because I may hurt you a little and you a little and you a little, but friends, every sin that I commit is actually against God. And he could look at me and he could hold a grudge. He could keep score and say, oh, another one, another one, another one. But God chooses to freely forgive. He says, I'll lose count. It's ridiculous. I said to her, I need God's forgiveness like more than 7 times a day. And so do you. And so you can choose now to let this hinder your past and hold on to bitterness, so you can choose to walk forward into a better future. Will you forgive? In Luke 17, Jesus says you must forgive. He doesn't say think about it. It could be an option. Maybe try this. He says you must forgive. And so she said, I'm willing to forgive today. I can't carry on like this. And so we led them in a moment where she forgave him. And I promise you, being in those moments, like on the forefront of seeing God do something amazing, it's an incredible thing. Because it felt like, for me, heaven came into the room. All of a sudden, there was peace. There was hope for a better future. Joy came in. It's like seeing them, their love was like rekindled, where before this was keeping them apart. It's like they were coming together in a stronger way. And I looked at this and I'm like, God, what are you doing? This is incredible. Here's the thing. Offenses can either hold us bitter and apart, or we can forgive and God can restore and do something even stronger than before. And so they left that day hand in hand, and the court case is still ongoing. That's still looming. But man, their hearts are settled. They've released one another in that, and they're saying, we're in this together no matter what. Friends, they're stepping into a better future. And as I contacted him and said, hey, can I tell you a story? He was like, bro, use my name. Just go for it. I don't care, because we're all about forgiveness. It's helped us so much. And I look at that and say, that could be our story too. We've been hurt. We've been let down. But we can either let it be a stumbling block to hold us back, or we can choose to cross over to the other side and say, God, I need your grace. I'm going to choose to release this person and step into a better future. Friends, your future is worth more than the pain of your past. It's time to leave it here. So Jesus actually talks a little bit about this in Matthew 18, and he's got this follower named Peter, and I really love Peter. Like, I think there's a lot of humor. If you don't think there's humor in the Bible, trust me, there is. Like, there's some really funny things that take place. And so Jesus is walking with Peter and his followers or disciples, and Peter is like a real teacher's pet. You know, he's that kind of person that when you got to class and none of you did the homework, he's the one that as the class starts, he goes, Ma'am, are you going to check the homework? Yeah. And you're just like, shut up, Peter. See you on the tennis courts, bro. Right? He's that kind of guy. He's like a real teacher's pet. And so he grew up in a culture where it was an eye for an eye. If someone wronged you, you had every right to take back or to cause justice to happen, an eye for an eye. As long as it's equal, you can take some form of revenge. And so he grew up in that culture, but now he's around Jesus, and Jesus is forgiving. And so he's like, I'm going to impress Jesus. You guys watch this. And he goes up to Jesus and he says, Jesus, when we get hurt, how many times should we forgive? He says this, Lord, how many times could my brother sin against me and I forgive him? As many as 7 times? And what he's expecting there is Jesus to go, whoa, my dude, that's too much. Come on. People are lying to you, stealing, backstabbing, rejecting, ignoring, abusing you. Come on, you can walk away at least 3. You'd be justified. I'd look at you and be like, I get you. You can walk on. But actually, Jesus turns around and tells him what he doesn't expect. He says, not as many as 7, but 7 times 70. 70 times 7. I'm going to help us that have a 1 out of 10 here. Okay, so 7 times 70. Who knows before I push? You guys are in the first meeting. You got this. 490. Okay. 490 times. There's another scripture in Luke 17 where he says that if someone sins against you 7 times a day, forgive that person over and over again. In one day. Guys, 490 is a lot. That's not like 490 over 490 people and 1 each and it's going to be fine. That's 490 per person. You guys are trying to figure it out. Is it a day? Is it an hour? So here's the thing. What we do, because we're so good at following rules and we want rules, is we say 490, okay, maybe I can push it there at a stretch, but 491, you best realize I'm walking away. That's it, bro. Again, friends, what we're doing there is we're doing the opposite of what Jesus is saying. We're keeping score, and he says it's time to lose count. It's time for us to stop holding on to the past. It's time for us to stop holding on to the pain and letting it play over and over and over again in our minds. It's time for us to stop doing the mall avoid. We've all done it. You're at the mall, you see that person that hurt you, and you just go, oh, this is some nice cat food. I don't even have a cat, but I'm just going to take a look at this for a while. We've all done it. Or we see that person is doing well on Instagram or on Facebook or whatever, and we just go, they don't deserve it. And it just wells up over and over again. It's time for us to let go. We don't keep score, we lose count. That's what maturity is. That's what growing up is saying, I'm going to live unoffendable. I'm going to choose my future over the pain of my past. I'm going to choose to walk forward with God and allow his grace to empower me to step into it. But it comes, friends, through really difficult decisions. It comes through us saying, yeah, I've been wronged, I'm in pain. But Jesus, I'm not going to allow this to fester and be more pain in the future. I'm going to choose to let it go here and now. I'm not going to give the enemy, which is what it says, room in my life to lie to me and play it over and over again. I'm going to choose to say, get behind me, Satan. My future is better than my past, and I'm going to walk forward with Jesus. So he goes on to tell a story because the guys are obviously like following Jesus. They're like, sorry, that's 490, Jesus. That's a lot. Jesus says, let me explain it this way. And he tells a story of a servant and a king. What I love about this is that Jesus walks every step with us. He doesn't say, obey me, good luck. He says, I want to walk with you in obedience. I want to teach you how to live. So he says, listen to the story. There was a servant that owed a king a lot of money. And one day the king was looking at his accounts and it was time to balance the books. And so he called that servant in and he said, all right, you owe me 167 million rand. Yeah, I said it right. 167 million rand. It was 10,000 talents. Experts and scholars say that today in that value in rands is about 167 million rand. Now, I know that some people may be in debt and they struggle to sleep at night, but let's think 167 million for a second. How many of you could pay 167 million debt? If that's you, please come talk to us. We've got some opportunities to advance the kingdom, right? Come on through. There's some schools in KZN that need supplies. Come on through. We've got some places that the kingdom can advance for that, right? But if we're honest, we don't have 167 million to pay debt. We don't. It's an impossible amount. That's the point Jesus is getting to. He could not pay it. And so he did what any one of us would do. He begged for mercy. He fell in front of this king. And it says in verse 26, at this, the slave fell face down before him and said, be patient with me, and I will pay you everything. Then the master of that slave had compassion and released him and forgave him the loan. He could have chosen to throw him in prison and say, pay me what you owe me. But instead he said, I'm going to forgive you. Not a small debt, not a medium-sized debt, an impossible debt to pay. I'll forgive. Why? Because he has compassion and kindness. And so this servant walks out, and I don't know what kind of walk you would have after 167, but I would. And so he walks out and he sees a friend as well, another servant that owes him money. And so it looks like I have an injury. I've been released of one. So he sees this friend that owes him money, and he walks up to this guy and he remembers, this guy owes me cash. He owes me 250,000 rand. Now, what we would think and what Jesus is getting to, I think he knows that we're all jumping to the end and going, my brother, you just got forgiven of 167 million. Surely you're feeling a bit generous at this point. Yeah. But what he does is he says 250K is a lot of money. And it is. If someone owed me 250K, I wouldn't easily go, that's okay. Because where's that 250K coming from? And so he looks at this guy, and instead of choosing to have compassion on him like he was shown compassion, he grabs a hold of him by the neck and he says, pay me what you owe me. And it's kind of like deja vu. This servant falls in front of him and says, please, please have mercy on me. But then he says this instead. He says, but he wasn't willing. On the contrary, he went and threw him into prison until he could pay what he was owed. Friends, what I find incredible about this sentence, it says, but he wasn't willing. It doesn't say he couldn't. It doesn't say it was impossible. It says that he wasn't willing. God's grace is on offer any moment of any day if we're willing. If we're willing to obey, if we're willing to say, I'm going to let it go, if we're willing to say, Father, I don't know how you're going to work all this together. I don't know what's going to happen to them. What if they do it again? If you're willing to let it go, you can step into the future God has for you. But as long as we hold on to the past, we will stay on this side of God's promises. And God is saying, obey me if you're willing, and I will give you grace, and I will set you free, and I'll give you joy like you've never seen, and I'll restore your relationships. And the church together will be an incredible picture of my grace and glory in this world if we choose to forgive. C.S. Lewis has a great quote that made me laugh this week. Everyone says forgiveness is a lovely idea until they have something to forgive. Jensen Franklin says, forgiveness is like money. We want to get it, not give it. Realize with God, with people, with everyone, I want mercy. I really do, because you don't understand my situation. I didn't mean anything bad by it. I'm just trying to work things out, and can you please just show me mercy? But I hold myself to a very low standard, and I hold others to a very high standard. I say, you deserve justice. You deserve to be hurt for what you've done to me. You deserve to have everything taken from you. You deserve, because you owe me. Friends, true maturity is not saying you owe me. True maturity is saying, man, I owe Jesus a debt I couldn't pay. He forgives me every moment of every day, and that never runs out. And so I'm going to choose the same for you. I'm going to choose my future over the pain of my past, and I'm going to leave it here. I'm going to walk forward. Friends, what if breakthrough is one decision away? I feel so strongly, like Kelsey was saying, that there's a blocking, and I've been feeling it heavy this whole week, just going, God, there's pain. God, there's bitterness. We've all been treated in ways that are totally unjust. But God is saying, it's time for me to unblock that. It's time for us to walk forward. I want to do it, but you need to be willing. We need to be willing. We need to obey God. Friends, it's time to lose count. It's time to forgive. I think this is so hard because when we've been hurt, we want justice. We do. Do you know that that's not a bad thing? I think the enemy can use that and pervert it because if we're honest, we're not doing an eye for an eye. We're doing an eye for a head. Right? We're going, you hurt me. I want you to experience the pain I experienced and even more than that. We want justice. I'm so glad that we have a heavenly Father that gives justice. Yeah. So good. When we forgive, we're not just going like, oh, it's totally fine and everything's just going to be so mushy-gushy and good. Actually, what we're doing is we're entrusting our Father with what He does going forward. And justice is His, it's not mine. Because when I execute justice, I'm going to do it selfishly, I'm going to do it maliciously, I'm going to take from you. And God says justice doesn't belong to you, it belongs to me. And so let me do it the way I want to do it. This is really tough because when I look at any situation where someone's hurt me, the way that I view it, and maybe you're just like me, is I think it's me and God against them. Anybody else like that? Right? God is obviously on my side because I'm the victim, and so He's obviously against the person that hurt me. Here's a sobering thought. God is not on your side. We're on His side. And God's side is not, you're the victim and I'm only for you. God's side is, I'm for all humanity. God's side is, I want to heal this broken world. God says, I love you just as much as I love the person that hurt you. I died for you. I died for them. I will never give up on you. I will never give up on them. Jesus says, I will give mercy over judgment. That's the mode God is in right now, and I'm thankful for it. That he chooses mercy every single time. And one day, when we stand before him and he wraps up all things in this world, there will be a time for judgment. And we can choose to either trust God with that, or we can choose to take it in our own hands and be robbed of the future that we could potentially step into. God says, give to me what belongs to me. Vengeance is mine. And when I execute vengeance, it's perfect. It's just. It's the right thing to do. Romans 12, he says, do not repay anyone evil for evil. Try to do what's honorable in everyone's eyes. I love this. He says, if possible. So it's not saying that every time we forgive, it's just going to go back to normal and totally fine. He says, if possible, on your part, live at peace with everyone. This is huge because as we learned a couple of weeks ago, I can't control a situation. I can't control you, but I can control me. And he's saying that here we need to stop looking at other people and we need to start looking in and saying, God, what should I do here? And he says, you need to be living at peace with everyone. Peace is not holding on. Peace is letting go. He says, friends, do not avenge yourselves. Instead, leave room for his wrath. For it is written, vengeance belongs to me. I will repay. Well, you've been hurt. You're saying, but Warren, you don't understand. You don't know what people have done to me. I want to say he knows. He knows. He says, I will repay. I will repay. He says, that's my job. But our job is this next part. If your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he's thirsty, give him something to drink. For in doing so, you're heaping fiery coals on his head. Do not be conquered by evil, but conquer evil with good. Tit for tat and getting revenge doesn't ever bring peace. But when one party decides to forgive, it's like heaven invades earth. Friends, we're South Africans. We know that more than anyone. Mandela made a decision where he could have said, tit for tat. He said, I'm going to be the person to show maturity and forgive. And we all are seeing around this room diversity we never saw before because a man chose to forgive. Friends, forgiveness is powerful. Forgiveness brings heaven here to earth. And we can be a people that walk forward and see restoration wherever we go, and peace and healing. And people turn around and say, but I don't deserve this. I've hurt you. I've done wrong. You have. But I've done wrong to him. He chooses to forgive me. I release you. I release you. When we do that, we see healing and restoration and peace like we've never seen before. Friends, it's time to leave it here. There's more for us. Forgiving is more than just words. We've all done it. Come on, at the end of an argument, I forgive you for being a jerk. I forgive you for everything you've done. I can't believe that you did this and that, but anyway, I forgive you. What we do is we say something with our words, but something else is happening in our hearts. In Luke 7, or in Matthew 18, as Jesus is wrapping up that story, it actually turns out that servant, his master, the king, found out he didn't forgive, and he brought him back and he put him in prison. He said, now you're going to pay me that 167 million because you weren't willing to forgive. He says, friends, hear this, is that God is not willing to forgive you if you're not willing to forgive others. It's a harsh truth, but he says, forgive others with all your heart. All your heart. This is a heart decision. It's us saying, I release you from the prison I've put you in. From saying, you owe me, you owe me, you owe me, to saying, you don't owe me anything. I release you and put you in the hands of Jesus. And whatever he decides to do will be the right thing. And so I'll honor him in that and release you in that decision in my heart. And I'll choose to walk free. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to have beautiful feelings at first. Forgiveness is not a feeling, it's a choice. And so we're not going to feel like forgiving. We're going to feel pain. We need to be prepared for that. We're going to feel hurt. We're going to feel injustice. We need to be prepared for that. But I'm so grateful that we don't live life by feelings. We live life by faith. And we say, God, whatever you say, I will do. And I'm trusting that even though I'm not seeing it now, when I walk forward and cross over to the other side, your grace will empower this situation and I'll start to see the peace and the restoration and the life change. And I'm trusting even in that my kindness would lead them to repentance, just like your kindness led me to repentance. So we want to hold people and say, you've done this, you've done this, you've done this, you've done this, and you need a change. But instead, if we treat people with kindness like Jesus treats us, he doesn't look at me and say, Warren, this and this and this and this needs to change. That doesn't lead to change in my life. What leads to change is God gives me what I don't deserve. And I say, Father, I don't deserve this. I want to turn my life and I want to walk in a new way with you. It's giving each other what we don't deserve. It's a heart decision. It's not just words. There's a couple quick things here that we grapple with because these are some of the reasons that we hold on. You know, we've heard the statement, forgive and forget. You guys heard that? Anybody ever forgiven? Has anybody ever forgiven and you still remember what happened? Yeah, we do, because we're people. See, here's the thing. When we forgive, we will still remember the pain of the past or what happened, but we'll see it with different lenses. What once used to be a GPS coordinate to bitterness in our life, and at the moment anyone got near that, we went, I can't. It now becomes something we look back on and we see God's faithfulness. We see his healing. We see his restoration. We see how much we've grown. We see how he even has mercy on them and they change. We see beautiful things take place as we walk forward into the future instead of holding on to the past. And so we don't forget, we just see it in different lenses. We say, God, come and change the way I see. Come and change this narrative where I'm the victim and they are the one that hurt me, and help me to see the love you have for them. Help me to see the mercy and grace you have for them, how you died for them. God, come and change this narrative. Another thing is we think that when we forgive people, there's no consequences. And what I love is that, like 2 weeks ago, I told the story of someone who had a girlfriend and a wife. And the wife decided to forgive the husband and treat him in a way he didn't deserve. And the husband then repented, turned his life around, came to Jesus, and it was a beautiful thing that happened. And even after sharing that story, I spoke to a couple of people that were like, okay, but let's talk quickly for a second. Did that husband get what he deserved? Because you know you can't treat people like that. And they were getting offended from a story. We don't even know this woman, but we're just going like, you cannot do that. See, and when we hold on to those things, we want consequences for other people. And friends, I want to say that we're not the ones to give them. But sometimes it may mean that we need to allow the judicial system to take place. What I mean by that is, if somebody is abusing you, it may mean that you need to move out. It may mean that you need to go through the process of healing and see what God wants to do in that relationship, but God hasn't called you to be a punching bag. It could even mean that if you're, say for example, your son has a drug addiction and he's emptied your bank account. It doesn't mean you forgive and give him the bank card again immediately. Friends, that's irresponsible. We release them in our hearts, but it may mean he needs to go to rehab. You see, forgiving is not removing consequences, but we realize we're not the ones to give them, but maybe they do need to grow in certain ways. And the last thing here is that forgiving doesn't mean the relationship goes back to what it was. If we're expecting that, we're going to be bitterly disappointed. It's going to take time. It's going to take some healing. And maybe it even means that you learn to walk not holding on to this, but actually in a new way. It could mean that your business partner has been stealing money for years. And you choose to forgive them, release them in your heart, but going back into business is just unwise. And so choose a new way forward. Right? And so we choose to walk that way with God. Friends, we all have an impossible debt that we owe God. What I love about Jesus is he hangs on that cross after the very people that he came to save and love on are looking at him and shouting abuse. They're beating him. They're ready to murder. There's rage in their eyes. They've robbed him of his dignity. They've robbed him of his clothes. They're dividing them amongst each other. And Jesus looks at this scene where he has every right, being fully God and fully man, to call down fire on heaven and see vengeance come. Jesus looks up to heaven, and when you go, this is the moment. It's going to happen. Justice is coming. He says, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they do. And in 3 days, his choice to forgive changed the world. And you and I have life change and hope for a better future because he decided to forgive. Jesus says, as I've been to you, go and be to others. My mercy never runs out. I'll forgive again and again and again and again and again and again. But God, I don't deserve it. I'm going to let you down. I know. I'll forgive again and again and again and again. Because that's who He is. So as long as we're holding on to the pain of our past, we'll never step into the future. It's time as we obey God, He empowers us with His grace to cross over to the other side. And that means we need to leave it here. It's time for us to lose count.